Hello and welcome to this video tutorial. Today we're going to create this interesting diamond shape pattern in Adobe Illustrator, and we're going to do it from scratch. So I'm going to start here in Illustrator with the rectangle tool. I'm going to hold the shift key as I drag out a square. I'm going to rotate this, so I'm just going to hover outside the edge with the selection tool having selected it. Hold down the shift key as I rotate it round so that it's more like a diamond shape. I'm going across here to the direct selection tool and I'm going to drag over to select these two anchor points and then go to the scale tool here, and now when I drag on these anchor points they're going to be dragged in the same direction towards the center of the object, not away from it. So now I've got a more diamond shape object. I'm going to realign this box around the shape by selecting it and choosing Object Transform and then Reset Bounding Box. So it's now a square bounding box around the shape. Now I've got my shape, I want to divide it in two, so I'm going across here to the scissors tool, shares a toolbar position with the eraser tool. I'm going to click once on this topmost anchor point and once on this bottommost anchor point. Going to the selection tool, I can now select over one side and you can see that I've got two individual shapes. Just going to put those back together again. We're going to make a blend out of this, but I've just noticed that I've got a white fill on my shapes. That's not going to work for me, so I'm going to select both of them and I'm going to turn my fill off. In other words, just set it to none. That means when I drag these over the edge of the document, you'll see there is no fill. So we're going to make a blend and we're going to fail, and I'm going to show you why. So let's choose Object, Blend, and then Make. You can see that the blend has a number of steps in it, and it doesn't really matter what the steps are, but I wanted this to be blends of these sides, not the actual shape. So let's just undo that and let's have a talk about why this is happening, because it's a really confusing thing in Illustrator. The thing with Illustrator is that it's got direction. So when we drew this shape, the shape went from, for example, down here and then up here and then up here. So you can see that the direction on this part of it went, for example, down, while the direction on this part of it would have gone up. And that's why when we try to make a blend out of it, we get more squares instead of getting blends of lines. So what we have to do is make one of these point in the opposite direction. Doesn't matter which one. Object Transform, I'm going to reflect. I'm going to reflect over the horizontal. So we shouldn't see anything different here except that the shape has been flipped over, so that now these two shapes have a direction that's in exactly the same direction. So let's click OK. So let's stick them back together again. And let's go and remake our blend exactly the same way. Select over it, Object, Blend, Make, and this time the blend's very different. So I just wanted to show you that problem with directions on lines, because one of these days it's going to bite you. It's going to come up on something else perhaps that you're doing, and it's going to be handy to remember that. So now I'm going back to the blend tool over here. I've got specified steps equals 4, so you can just select specified steps from this option here, and I'm just going to increase that because I want a few more of these shapes. I'm just going to click OK. So we've got our shape made. Let's expand this blend. So we'll go to Object and then Blend, and we'll go to Expand. In the Layers panel, let's just check and see what we've got. Well, we've got a whole series of lines inside a group. So far so good. If I want to color these, I'm going to use the Live Paint tool. So I'm going to select over these, I'm going to choose Object and then Live Paint, Make. That's made this into a live paint object that I can then paint with the Live Paint paint bucket. So I'm going to click over here on Live Paint Bucket. I'm also going to double click on it just to check and see what the settings are. I only want to paint my fills, not my strokes. I've got fill selected. I do want to see the swatch preview as I'm hovering over the shape, so I'm going to turn on cursor swatch preview. And I'm just going to highlight things that as I'm hovering over them, I can see really clearly where I'm about to paint. So I'll just click OK. Let's go to the swatches panel because I already have some swatches here. So I'm going to click on the first of these colors. And now because I've got that swatch preview showing, you can see highlighted in red the area that I'm about to paint, and the little swatch preview is telling me that I'm about to use dark red. So I'm just going to click there once. If I use the left and right arrow keys, I can just move through these swatches. So I'm going to choose this color for the next one. I'm going to press the right arrow key a couple more times to get a little bit further through my swatches, and then a couple more times to get to the end. So I've got my shape colored, but it is still a live paint object. You can see here in the layers palette that it's a live paint object. So I'm going to choose object and then live paint, and I'm going to expand it. And that will give me a group. And inside the group is the line work and also the color work. So this is a group well, it's actually two groups inside a group inside a group. I'm just going to burst them up one level. I'm just going to ungroup so that I've just got one group here. Now at this point I might say that those lines are not a very good color. I don't think they are, so let's just go back into the group. This is the lines group, and it's obviously got a black stroke on it, and this is just the color group. So what I'm going to do is go to the lines, just make sure I have the lines targeted. I'm going to target the stroke, and I'm just going to apply a really dark red color to the lines. I think that looks a little bit better. So let's drag a duplicate of this one away, and you'll see that they're going to line up perfectly. But I want this one to be a different color, so I'm going to select it. I'm going to the recolor artwork dialog. Now there are lots and lots of ways in this dialog that we could recolor these. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to choose neutral. So I'm going to the color library and I'm going down here to neutral. I'm just going to click on neutral because that's a kind of cool sort of color scheme. Now I'm not really happy with that middle color, so let's quickly go back into the recolor artwork dialog. Let's go into advanced options and then into edit. And here, this is the middle color, so let me just unlink the harmony colors and let me see if I can find something a little bit nicer for that color. I've got hue, saturation, brightness selectable here, so I can also brighten up that color a little bit or alter its saturation. I think that looks a little bit better to me. Now this is the foundation of my pattern. In fact, that's all I need to make my pattern. So I'm going to select over both of these shapes and go to Object, Pattern, and then Make. I'm going to turn off the background here, or the artboards with View, Hide Artboards. Just going to clean things up a little bit, and I'm also going to zoom out so I can see things a little bit better. You should see the pattern options dialog on the screen. There are a few concerning things here. One is that we never want our width or height to be anything other than whole numbers. So I'm just going to kick that up to 374, so that is a whole number. I'm also going to start adjusting the height because I want to bring these in closer. To make it go faster, I'm holding the Shift key as I press the down arrow key. So I've clicked in the height box, Shift down arrow just moves it 10 pixels at a time. If I want to slow it down, then just the down arrow key by itself. Now obviously we want to bring it in as well, so I'm going to click here and again Shift up arrow or Shift down arrow to move things across. Need to make sure that these are lined up really well, so I'm going back to my zoom tool, going to zoom in here to make sure that this alignment is correct. Can see it's out a little bit here, so let's just see what's causing that. Okay, so it was a combination of width and height, and I've just adjusted them slightly, and I'm looking here at the joins that I can see on the screen, and everything is looking really, really good. So let's just zoom back out again. You can see more of these shapes if you go to copies and set it to 9 by 9. That'll give you a better look perhaps at your design. If you're happy with that, you can just click done. Now the other thing that you could do is to remove the lines from this entirely. So let's go and see how we would do that. I'm going to the swatches panel, which I just mistakenly turned off. Here is my pattern. So this is the pattern we just created. I'm going to drag it onto the plus sign down here to make a duplicate of it. Then I'm going to double click either of these. It doesn't matter which. Now I've got my tile edge turned off. It doesn't matter whether yours is turned on or off, but I do need to select these shapes. So I'm going to come in here and select over these shapes. And you can see what I'm saying here is that these have got mixed fills and mixed strokes. That's not surprising because the fills of all of these shapes are different colors, and the strokes on this shape and on this shape are going to be different because it's been recolored. So let's just go to the layers palette and Let's open this up. So this is one of the shapes and this is the other shape. So if I don't want any lines at all, I'm going to each of these shapes and the line work in that shape, and I'm just going to turn it off. So that's done it for one of these shapes, and here's the other one, and we're just turning that off. So now let me just close down these panels and let's turn off the tile edge and let's just click away from this, and we can see that this pattern is different again. So I'm just going to click done to save that. So we've got two different patterns. Let's bring back our artboards with View Show Artboards. Now this was a 1000 by 1000 pixel document when I started. Doesn't matter how big yours is, as long as you know how big it was, so that you can put a rectangle or a square, the shape of the artboard, over the top of it. Now I've got one of the patterns already in the stroke. It shouldn't be there. Let's just rock it across to the fill. I want to see this at a smaller size, so with my rectangle selected, I'm choosing Object, Transform, and then Scale. I'm going to scale it uniformly. I don't want to scale the shape, I just want to scale the pattern, and I'm going to bring it down to 50%. So there's one of my patterns. If I go to my swatches panel, which I've lost yet again, let's just go and bring that up. So this is my pattern version with the stroke on it. And this is the one without the stroke. So you can choose which of the two you like, or you can use both of them. Now you can also recolor them. So just select either of these patterns, go to Recolor Artwork, Dialog, and then you can recolor them. You've got colors from both of these shapes available to you here. Now you may want to apply colors from, for example, a color library that you have or that is stored in Illustrator. So I'm just going to Nature Beach here, and that will recolor this design entirely, and I can rotate the colors around here to see if I can find something more interesting for my design. You can see that just applying a color scheme has flattened these colors, so I'm not getting the detail in the colors. Things are joining together, but it's giving me some really interesting results. If I see something I like, I'm just going to click away. So that has added that to the swatches panel. So we've got our original pattern and the one without lines, and now we've got this one with these sort of flattened colors in it. And you can go back to any of these and go back to the Recolor Artwork dialog, and every time you make a new pattern coloring and exit this dialog, it's going to be saved as a new pattern in Illustrator. So what I'm going to do here is just roll these colors around and see if I can find something interesting here. In this new Recolor Artwork dialog, this front panel, the beauty of this panel is that you can go backwards and forwards, so you can wind back to something you did a couple of seconds ago or wind forward on it. You can't do that inside the advanced options, so just be aware of that. Sometimes this is a panel that you will want to use these days because it does have that wind forward, wind back ability. And again, if I check my swatches panel, we're just adding patterns each time to the two that we made originally, the one with the sort of flattened colors in it, and now this one with the rotated colors. If you like carefully researched content like this, clearly presented in a step-by-step format so that you can get great results, then you'll love my Skillshare content. I'm a Skillshare top teacher. I have hundreds of short courses on Skillshare that you can access, along with thousands of other great courses, all for the price of a single subscription. If you're interested, there's a Skillshare coupon for you in the description below to use to sign up. Using this coupon benefits me as a creator, and it helps me continue to make free content available here for you also on YouTube. Thank you for joining me for this video tutorial. On the screen now, you'll see a video that I've hand-picked for you. If you enjoyed the video you've just watched, I know that you're going to really enjoy the one I've picked for you to watch next.